Hi, everybody. Today it's my pleasure to share this interview with Jillian Hack. She is our clinic manager. Hi,
Hello.
hi, Jill. Thank you. And we were just at the office and we realized that it's been almost a year that we haven't done any new podcast. And she said, you know what? I'm going to put you to a challenge. So she's just going to go and throw questions at me, and I'm going to answer those questions, and let's see what we end up with by the end of the session. It's going to be very, very interesting because I don't know what she's going to throw at me. But these are questions that usually clients ask, or she just want to increase her knowledge about human body. Okay, so the stage is yours, Jill.
Yeah, I want to take everyone through a few of the things I've learned since working here. So I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on some of that because one of the things I've learned so much since working here is how much the body is connected. Up until I started at Unpain Clinic, it was very much like wherever the symptom was is where you treated and you just dealt with it that way. And working with you, I've noticed that that is not the case. So I want to pick your brain on some of the things that you've seen that are kind of wild to anyone who's not in this field, being like, oh, wow, maybe my pain is not being caused by the place that I'm feeling it. So,
Can I
one
interrupt
thing,
you? Can I
of
interrupt
course,
you? Okay, sorry about that. It's interesting because clients actually say, how come I'm looking at their toe when they're complaining about the neck? And how come my toe is connected to my neck? And I say to them, when you hit your toe, while you're walking at home, you hit the angle, like you hit the door or something, and it hurts, it means it's connected. So it can affect your body. So, okay, I'm ready for your first question.
so what is something that no matter what someone's coming in for, is there something that you treat or test every single time? Is there a part of the body that to you is like the place that needs to be tested because everything could be related to that?
Yes. So when we test human body, we have to test it, especially for what we do, because we specialize in muscle skeletal condition, in proper function and movement. So there are two things that are critical for human body. We have the software aspect, and then we have the hardware aspect. The software aspect is how the nervous system is actually receiving the information and how is actually responding back to that information. So the software could be working properly, but now it could be a hardware issue. So the hardware issue means all the muscles. So how the muscles are actually functioning as a mechanism, as a tissue. Because if there's an injury in the muscle, if there's a fascia tightness, if there is a some physical problems, then they would not allow the muscle to function properly. So if I look at one thing for my personal experience, it's extremely rare that somebody came in complaining about something in their body and they did not have a surgery in their body. So since abdominal surgeries are very common, including the most common one is C-sections, appendectomies, gallbladder surgeries, hysterectomies, you name it, and recently with open heart surgeries, a lot more. So any surgery in that region, what it will do, it will actually cause core muscle dysfunction. And I know that everybody is bombarded with how important the core muscle function is, but there is a it's not a conflicting information. It's not that there is a huge difference. You can have a powerful core muscle, but you actually must have a functional core muscle. So we test core muscle region from two aspects. The software aspect, is it actually communicating in the first place? And then the hardware aspect, if the muscle it's actually strong enough to produce the power. And why the core muscle is so important in human body is that if the core muscles are designed, whoever created human body and whenever it was created, these muscles were so big, they're designed to produce the power. So they are the powerhouse when it comes to any time related to motion. So even if you're sitting and you lift your shoulder, you will actually use your core muscle to allow the shoulder to go up. So what
Right.
happens is when the core muscles, when the big muscles are down, then the small muscles will actually suffer because they're not designed now to do that power. Instead of them just dealing with local stability of that small joint, now they have to produce the power and deal with the stability. And then what happens? Then a small muscle gets super tight, it starts thickening up. Human body thinks, okay, I have much more resistance applied there. It's going to start growing up the muscle. It will deposit calcium, build up. Everything will start getting restricted, and that's how the pain starts. And it does not matter the level of physique the person has, whether they're an athlete or they're just somebody that do nothing. If there's a compensation, there's a compensation. So yes, we test
So
core muscle for that reason.
so even if someone didn't have an abdominal surgery of any sort, like would you still test the core muscle for them?
Yes, great question. Thank you, Jill. I love it so far. So imagine this. So our software, our body, function based on the habits. So we create habits, and what happens is that's how we learn. You know, we learn how to hold the spoon. That's a habit that you created. That's a pattern that you created. That's a muscle memory that you have created. Um, and then once you memorize that, the brain is so efficient that it actually doesn't want to go and relearn a new pattern. The most common injury that affects the human body software that I've seen, and I don't think so there's a human that goes through their life that they don't sprain their ankle. So if we look at the ankle, it's actually the biggest sensor that feels and gets all the information from the ground, tells our brain how the ground is. Is the ground stable? If it's unstable, what the big muscles they must do to actually respond to the challenge. So if somebody has sprained the ankle severely and they wear air boot or crutches, or it goes or they limp, even if they don't get to that point, they limp for a few weeks, the brain actually start learning the pattern. Okay, I sprained my right ankle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move and use more the left side. So it's going to start actually forcing all the muscles to start compensating and using the left side.
Which
And if you
automatically
just
knocks you off balance,
exactly, that's
right?
that's the first thing. So for imagine if you want to go to the extreme level to envision that, it's almost now you're just like walking with one foot, with one leg. Instead of walking, you're jumping. And with time, doesn't matter how strong you are, it's gonna catch you. And this is what I see with a lot of athletes, is that they go and run, they do marathons, they're very powerful lifters, and they do all of that, which normally, if you're that powerful, you should not have any problem. The problem is not caused from the lack of power. It's actually caused from the imbalance of the muscles and how the body's using them.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you put it like that, it's so obvious that like if you're starting to limp, yeah, you're going to knock off your hips, you're going to imbalance your core. Doesn't matter how many crunches you're doing, like you're off
Yeah.
balance. But you
Yes.
don't think about it like, I mean, I've had whiplash injuries, I've sprained my ankle, and until you treated my ankle, I never in a million years would have thought my ankle was what was causing me to still not be able to stand up straight. Like
Yes. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
makes sense, but not a lot of people put it that way.
No, no. Unfortunately, see, when we go through school, when we study human body, it's almost like learning a new language. You first learn the alphabet. And once you learn the alphabet, imagine if you and me, we start talking now just letter by letter. It would not make sense. We would drive everybody crazy, right?
Yeah.
So we learn those letters, and then we start speaking, and then we have the conversation. The same thing is with healthcare practitioners. We have to learn the alphabet of anatomy and learn all those pieces. But then once we start practicing, we cannot look at human body like that, how we just learn the pieces. They all work together. So we have to look at the function. When I teach shockwave to other practitioners, I say every time when you're having hard time diagnosing a condition, please zoom out. What that means is that we get in so much thinking, oh, the problem is too deep, and we just go zoom in, we look at like close what this is doing, what is moving, we do MRI, we do ultrasound. All you have to do is just like step back 2 steps, look at the whole body and see how it's moving, and then everything will start actually coming together and realizing, oh my god, it's this ankle that is making the neck tight. It's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with the neck. It's just when the person is walking, they're limping, they're throwing their neck off. And our body, it's always in survival mode. So anytime when there is a force, a challenge that it's not allowing the body to function at the optimal level, then the body, it will actually adapt, like it will actually react first. It will give you the pain if you don't do anything about that, because our cells think our biology, it's still 100,000 years old. It still think that we are outside, we are in for survival. So then if it cannot fix it, it's going to start adapting. And therefore, there's a book actually called Body Keeps Scores. So any injury that you have, your body will remember that. It will keep those scores, and eventually it will hit you.
I read a quote once a long time ago that said something about the symptoms you feel is actually your body's way of trying to heal it. So not actually what's causing the pain. And I feel like it's kind of confusing, but also very true that like that's not necessarily the injury and the part of your body that needs to be treated. It's like your body compensating, saying like something's wrong with us. That's why we feel pain here. How often
So,
do you how
yeah.
often do you feel like someone comes in and says like, I don't know what I did, I'm feeling this pain here, and you have to zone out and be like, or zoom out and be like, well, have you had an injury somewhere else? Like you're feeling this pain here and you don't know where it's coming from because it's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, so there are two things that exactly, like, this is another excellent question. So when somebody comes in for the first time at Unpaid Clinic, and it's not just me, it's the whole team, we kind of divide the assessment, or this question, in two things. So we ask them, okay, uh, do you have any idea how this pain started? They say, oh no, I have no clue. It was a gradual buildup. So what that tells us right away, it tells us that this pain, this problem, it's actually part of the compensation because it happened gradually. It is much easier when we know when the injury was, because then we know that's the source of the trauma, and then we go kind of from there and out. So if they say, oh yes, I was walking, I lifted this, I fell, I got rear-ended and all of this stuff, I got in car accident, then we have an idea, and then we start from there. So every time when uh, the pain shows up one day as a big problem, but when you actually stop and think and look back, you had that pain. It was just it was more as a background noise. It was just gradually building up. And then one morning you woke up and it's boom, there. You cannot move from your back. You cannot move your shoulder. You cannot move your neck. It just means that chronic compensation, that signal, because pain in the end of the day is just a signal that tells that something is off in the body, but it doesn't tell you what is off. And unfortunately, our life is getting busier and busier and busier. So what that means is we ignore those signals, and the body is constantly in fight and flight mode. But you only have fuel for so much, and then if you don't actually make the decision to stop and listen your body, then your body, unfortunately, it's going to force you. It's going to stop you.
Yeah, very true. And usually not at a convenient time.
Nope.
We talked about scar tissues already, but I kind of wanted to talk more in depth that a, a surgery of any point, and we talked about the abdomen affecting so many things in the core muscles, but just any type of surgery or just maybe a really deep cut or scar, can that affect so much more than just that place? Like, say you have a knee replacement, and obviously you need to do some rehab to fix that knee that's now been replaced and get some strength in there. But with that scar tissue, is that going to affect more of your body? Like, do you need to deal with that scar tissue?
Uh, Definitely. So this is excellent question, great question, and I'm going to actually share a quick image here if I can.
Yeah.
So do you see this image here?
Yeah.
It looks like a spider web, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And nowadays, people understand more the fiber optics. So they understand if the internet runs in fiber optic cables, it's faster. So these are the fiber optic cables of the internal body. This is where the information travels from the brain to the tissue, to any tissue in the body. Any tissue that you have physically, it's actually covered in fascia. So, just to give you a perspective for people who are listening to this and they don't actually see a visual, imagine when you buy any kind of meat, that thin white layer in the meat, that's actually the fascia. So the fascia, it's the cover of the tissue of the muscle, and it is innervated, and it has more innervation than your retina on your eye. Just imagine that. And this is throughout your whole body. So surgeries are, thanks God that we have them available. Thanks God for the surgeons. We need the surgeons. We need the surgery when it's needed. I am personally against, doing just exploratory surgery or just doing a surgery for something that nowadays there are so many other options that that tissue can be healed. So how surgeries affect human body, there are two ways. So one way is again from the software aspect, from the communication, because it doesn't matter the size of surgery. Like sometimes I have, clients that had just a mold removed, but it was deeper than what they thought to be, so it touched the fascia. So the moment that they cut the fascia in, let's say on the back, what's going to do, the signal that goes from the brain to that region, to that muscle, it will be temporarily disconnected because the fascia was injured. Those fiber optics were actually cut. So what happens now, body, because it's always again in survival mode, it will be pushed to go in fight and flight mode and to understand if we cannot communicate with this muscle here, let's see if we can actually figure out another way to go. Instead of just going directly to muscle A, we're going to go through to muscle D, then we're going to move to muscle C, then we're going to move to muscle B, and we actually make the muscle A work, because the muscles that fire together, they work together, and that's how the body creates actually an alternative pathway of using or creating those what we call it dysfunctional patterns. So any surgery, doesn't matter the size, doesn't matter how long ago it was, because number one, there is no expiry date on injuries. Number two, you still live in the same body. So as long as you live in the same body, it's still gonna affect you. Okay. So now this is just the communication aspect. Now, when we talk about the physical aspect, every time when you cut the body, it's almost like the shirt here. Imagine the fascia is like nice and flat in here. You cut it here. When you put it together, you're going to wrinkle it. Okay? So what it's going to start doing now, if I have any surgery in the front here and I wrinkle this, it's going to see how it pulls the shoulders both ways. Or in abdominal area, it starts actually pulling as it heals towards the cut. So it creates actually tension on other body parts. And if you're a runner, if your body is using more lower body, you're going to end up more with lower body injuries. If you don't do running, but you actually sit at the desk, then it's going to pull more your neck, it's going to pull more your shoulder, it's going to cause more hip flexor tightness. So, for example, with C-sections or appendectomy, the most common concerns that people came or complaints, they had lower back tightness, they had hip flexor tightness, and they had tension on their neck. To the point that if they had multiple surgeries, then they ended up with vertigo. They were experiencing chronic headaches, migraines, and everything else.
So for our purposes, shockwave then breaks down the scar tissue. Is that what you're going to do? Like how would you help that now? How would you help someone who's had a C-section?
Okay. Can I just go a little bit on the rabbit hole? I'm just going to
Sure.
share personal experience, and then I'll explain how the shockwave does work in this case. So,
Okay.
I had when there are people that say it's like sometimes like we're put in this universe to do something. It is our journey. It's our life pattern. And unfortunately, I had a hernia surgery when I was 5 years old because I was a very hyperactive kid. And that's what they said to my parents. They said it's like he ended up with this like inguinal hernia because he was jumping around and doing all kind of crazy stuff. So anyway, so I had that surgery when I was 5, and then I loved cycling. So I cycled a lot, like all day. I was on my bicycle, and then I went. I loved swimming, so I started competing. I was champion for my category for front crawl back home in Kosovo. So I was a competitor swimmer, cyclist, but I always had bigger belly. So even though I was super built elsewhere, so I could never understand. I would do diets. I would try to lose weight. I would get probably super, what do you call it, like ripped, on my extremities, but not on my belly. I never had 6 packs, and I still don't. So anyway, about I think about like 10, 11 years ago. So I took a training in muscle testing, and what they were talking saying it's like, hey, every time when you treat somebody, look at surgical scars because that actually affect muscle function, what I already explained. And the way how they suggest it, and they still do suggest, a lot of healthcare practitioners, especially manual therapists, is massage the scar and try to stimulate the scar so hopefully it reconnect and function. And I was there and I said to myself, oh my God, with my shockwave experience, because by that time I was doing shockwave for already 5, 6 years, and I was thinking, okay, I can actually reach this with shockwave in a matter of seconds. So I actually treated myself first. And as soon as I treated myself, it's like, oh, my posture changed. I'm feeling better. And I about 6 weeks later, people were saying it's like, oh, Uran, you lost weight. It's like, no, I didn't lose any weight. It's just my core is functioning better. Okay, so this is how I started and how I discovered this technique, and I actually start testing that on clients. Anybody who came with surgery, I start treating that. Boom, 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 and things will. When I look back now, if I have anybody that has had any kind of surgery like joint replacement and all that, we go and treat the scars. Anything that we do on top of that, it actually works. It stays because we have engaged the core. So how shockwave works for this reason is that shockwave, especially true shockwave, not the jackhammer one, not the radial. So we use the focal shockwave on those cases, and then we actually go and use electrohydraulic system. It just works another notch better for this specific reason. And what it does, it will because it uses the same technology. It uses powerful sound waves. So it's the same technology as they break up kidney stones with. Imagine if somebody just hits you a little bit. You're walking on the store. You're walking in the mall. Do you remember that? never. If somebody come and hits you directly in the face, punches you, you will remember that rest of your life. So what that means is the stronger the stimuli, it actually creates bigger change in the cortex in the brain. So what we're doing now, that's why by touch, because the stimuli is so light, it's not able to actually go and change how your brain remembers that region. When I hit that with shockwave, imagine the shockwave that is used for kidney stones. When I hit the skin with that energy, your brain is going to freak out. Oh my God, what's happening? But we're still not doing anything artificial. All we're doing is we're just telling your brain, is like, hey, remember this site? Remember? Remember this site? And then it remembers. Oh my God, it's like I forgot to talk to it. And then automatically the patterns start communicating through there. And therefore we see a permanent, like it only happened one in my whole experience. It only happened in one case where I had to do 2 sessions because it did not do the correction in the first one. And the reason is that the lady had 4 C-sections. So the cut was so deep and the
Yeah.
energy wasn't able to go through and it wasn't able to actually change the pattern. So there, everything in human body is possible, but that's the main reason why when we do the protocols that we have created for those reasons, they actually last very long term or permanent, because it will force your brain to communicate back to that site. And then the other thing is, because it's a mechanical force, it will actually break down scar tissues, adhesions. It will help the scar heal better. It will release the tension that is pulling on other muscles. And then the shockwave will stimulate new blood vessel growth. So wherever you do the shockwave, doesn't matter if you do it on the muscle or on the scar, it will stimulate new blood vessel growth. So it improves the blood circulation about 200 to 300% in that side. Then it will trigger stem cell activation. So the stem cells come and repair that area. And for people that or watching on YouTube, I was in a car accident 20 years ago, and I have 24 stitches here, and I had massive keloid scar here, and I was able to bring it to this point where it is today just with shockwave. So
Pretty cool.
that's how powerful it is.
It seems like a lot of why the body's connected. Like, I mean, we're talking about how you treat the body as one whole thing, but it feels like a lot of that is actually just because of muscle memory, because your body doesn't forget everything that it's had happen in its past, and that those muscles really hold on to like fixing the muscle memory to knock it out of its old habits.
Yeah, you were cutting off a bit, so I think I understood the question a bit. And what I'm so one thing we have to, again, we have to remember: muscles only deliver; they don't make decision. And
Right.
then our the job of gravity is to pull us down. Okay,
True.
the
I mean,
job of
that's true.
yes, right, to put us in the ground. Our job, our muscles. That's why it's so important to actually have strong muscles.
Yeah.
So strong muscles keep you upright, so they fight against gravity. So any injury that you have had in the past that wasn't treated and recovered and rehabbed properly, then it's going to be the weakest spot in your body. And that's where things starts first. They don't start on the strongest part. They
Right.
start where there was an injury, and then it just goes from there.
So so often, like when someone gets hurt, I feel like they're told, just rest it, time will heal it. Do you think that that's like an incorrect way to do it then? Do you think that you have to be doing something to help your body rehab properly rather than just giving it time?
Yes, because if time is going to heal something, it's not actual healing, it's more adaptation. So the body will actually adapt. And it's a different story, because there might be somebody who listens to us here and they're 100% right. and they would say, but how about, 10,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, we did not have physio, we did not have anything. And then we got injured and we healed. And
Right.
you're 100% right. And the reason is that 100,000 years ago, you actually walked barefoot. You didn't have any isolation. So you had a good charge from the earth. You didn't have the chemicals that you have today. You're not driving, you're walking. So you're actually using your whole body for survival. You're hunting. So it was a completely different environment. So therefore, because we have so many things now that actually damage our body, the food is not the same anymore. Our habits are not the same. Everything has become so much easier. Therefore, now human body to heal, it requires modalities. And thanks God for the technology in healthcare that is actually providing with those modalities that we can actually help humans now much faster. There is a difference though. And because when I took training as a physiotherapist back home in Kosovo, um, it's interesting. It's like when we what we learned then, to treat human body is like electrotherapies, ultrasound, heat pack, cold pack. These are great modalities. Unfortunately, they're old school approaches. Nowadays, you have shockwave therapy, which has the ability to reach 5 inches deep in the body without hurting any cell, and it will have the effect of so many other modalities that you can even put them together and they will still not be able to reach that level. You have lasers, you have like electromagnetic field, you have frequency therapy. So it's kind of a new, there's so many great tools. Then and plus, there's Jill, like we have now, for example, just example of our clinic, and we are not the only one and first one. They're all over Europe, but you have now a lot of AI, workout machines that instead of us trying to judge and say, okay, this muscle is this strong and this level, the system actually measures the muscle strength, mass, and then it adopts the resistance for that client at that stage, and that's how a faster rehab is happening. So as the time goes,
Right.
yes, we're gonna get injured, but then we're gonna actually recover much faster. And you've seen that with like our pro hockey players. When they get injured, how fast they recover. So
Yeah.
it now faster healing, it is possible.
Yeah. Makes
Despite the
sense.
fact that we have more, side like more injuries on the other side by sitting and chemicals and passive lifestyle, right? So yeah.
Right. One thing also that I remember you saying to me, which was shocking, is you don't like really arched shoes or supportive shoes. You yourself wear very flat soled shoes. And that kind of goes into that whole thing that you're saying about like gravity, and just your body being strong enough. But for you, like you would always tell someone to like not go to orthotics. You tell them to treat their feet and like walk better and get better habits, right?
Yes, I have another personal story. So this was a few years back, and I always go back home during the summer for about 6 to 8 weeks, and it's 8 hours difference. We live in Edmonton, Alberta, and then I go in Kosovo, which is between Greece and Croatia, that part of the world. So 8 hours difference. You're in completely different electromagnetic field of the Earth. So it
Mhm.
take us about a week till we change, the sleeping patterns. The same thing, the jet lag when we come back. So there was, a few years ago, I came back. It was fall time, and I was cycling through the river valley. And honestly, for almost like 2 weeks, I did not feel myself. Like the jet lag was so intense, and I just did not know what's happening. And I had that urge, I need to walk barefoot. I stopped my bike, and it was like 6 degrees. It was fall time, so it's cold. I stopped my bike, remove my shoes, and remove my socks, and I just start like walking for about a kilometer, just barefoot on the trail. And I saw one of my clients. So she was walking. She stopped to me. It's like, Uran, are you okay? Are you crazy or what's happening with you? And after that moment, I go home that night, boom, the whole jet lag clears. And that's actually because we are electric beings. So our cells need that electricity. So we need the positive, the negative, and then we need the ground, the zero. So for that reason, walking barefoot or being closer to the ground whenever, because I'm not saying it's like it's winter time, you must wear shoes, but the lower the insole, the better is for your foot and for your whole body. Your foot is the biggest sensor of the whole body because it feels everything that's happening and feeds that information to the central nervous system. Then you respond back. So the thicker the insole, imagine this: can you eat or can you do things with like thick gloves as you do it without gloves, right?
Yeah,
Imagine
no,
if you
you
have
can't.
this like thick glove and you're trying to actually write, you're trying to eat. How would that feel?
Right,
Your foot and your hand are exactly the same thing. You
right.
know, when we look at, we have so many sensors there. So that's why I don't recommend actually people, and you cannot do a cold turkey just to now get rid of that because it will be, your whole system will freak out. But try to go gradual, and shoes must be flexible and they must be actually wider so they're not squeezing your toes, because your big toe, it must be mobile. So if your big toe is not pushing off, it can actually it doesn't engage the muscle, what we call it, of the posterior chain, that they run literally from your plantar fascia all the way, they wrap above your eyebrow line. So then the kinetic chain doesn't get activated and triggered. So did I answer your
Well,
question or did I end it up
you
elsewhere?
no, you answered it. I'm just
Okay.
thinking now, like when I go to Europe, I'm going for a short time. I'm gonna have to walk around barefoot for a while. See if it works.
Honestly, it does. It does help. Yes, yes, yeah.
I'll give it a
Yeah.
try. I'll give it a try. Okay, I want to kind of wrap up with an actual more like case study. Because
Okay.
recently I heard you talking with one of our other therapists about a client, and they were talking about how this client had Achilles tendonitis and was having issues with her Achilles, and they'd shockwave there, they'd treated there, and it just wasn't sticking, wasn't working. She had relief, but just something was still off. And you said to this therapist two things. You said, one, you need to treat her hamstrings and glutes. And then you said you also need to treat her upper neck right up in here. And I was standing in the room and just kind of was like, opposite
Yeah.
ends of the body. Like, what are you talking about? But that was such an opposite ends of the body type case style. So can you explain why, from that little bit of information, hearing that she has Achilles tendonitis, that's the issue, why your mind went to treating those two spots?
Yeah. So imagine like two ends, like two ends of like of two ropes, right? So if Achilles tendon is at the other end of the body, if we want to call it, you know, the distal portion, the bottom portion. Now, when we look at, so I'll just explain the kinetic chain. So kinetic chain is the muscles that actually work together in one line, that they produce a force. So in human body, we have the posterior kinetic chain, which runs from above your eyebrows. It wraps around along your spine. Then it goes like through the glute muscles, hamstrings, and then all the way down. So this is one connection. And why that posterior kinetic chain is useful, if you bend only your head, now your actually head weight, it's actually held by the muscles that are more below the section. Because if your neck muscles were only holding your head against gravity when you go down, you will not be able to move your head down because they need to contract. So what the body does, it actually contracts the muscles that are lower, so it allows your neck to go down. And look at this: when you flex your head, it's actually the gravity pulls. The muscles just like let go and stretch. Okay. So we have the posterior kinetic chain. We have the lateral kinetic chain. So lateral kinetic chain is pretty much from the temporalis muscle here on the side, on the jaw. Then we have the little bit of the oblique, and then we have the TFL muscle, the muscle that controls the IT band, and then it goes all the way down. So, and then we have the frontal kinetic chain. The frontal kinetic chain is like these two side muscles on the neck. It goes your abdominal muscles, your adductor muscles, the inner thigh, and it goes down. So when there is a problem in any of the muscles of this kinetic chain, it will affect the whole kinetic chain. It does not affect just one local region. So if Achilles tendons are thick and tight, and despite the fact that we have done, let's say, 2, 3, 5 sessions of shockwave, and it's not going away, I've learned this from experience, but not just me. There are experts like Thomas Meyer, who has created the chart for fascia line, and Robert Schleit. These are like fascia experts that have been doing incredible work to actually teach healthcare practitioners that this is how the connection is in human body. So when you treat the Achilles, doesn't release the tension, then we have to go and work and release the other end of the kinetic chain. And that's how you actually decrease the tension on the Achilles tendon. And there's like a whole different story, but I don't think so. It's a good idea to get into like why tendons then they don't heal and why people end up in chronic tendonitis. We'll probably leave that for another
Yeah, next
episode.
time.
Yes, yeah,
We'll go into that.
yeah.
No, that's that it's really interesting. Like I said at the beginning, one of the main things I learned from working here is really how connected the body is, because I was an athlete growing up and unfortunately have had way too many whiplash injuries and sprained ankles and done all of that. And I've done a lot of physiotherapy. I've done a lot of just taking Advil and pushing through. And it wasn't until working here that someone ever treated my ankle, and that helped the whiplash. And just learning, no doctor or physiotherapist that I had seen before had ever zoomed out of my body and only had looked at the injuries I had, nothing from the past. And I think that's just, it's really interesting for a lot of people.
So I'm going to put you in the spot. How did you end up at Unpaying Clinic?
I came here as a client.
Oh,
I
really?
came here I came here to get my whiplash treated because I had 4 whiplash injuries. I've had like 7 concussions, and just hit my breaking point that I had tried everything. And I was at the point that my doctor said to me, I can prescribe you heavier pain meds, or you just have to live with it. And I came to Unpain Clinic to try this shockwave stuff I'd heard about.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So,
Thank you. It's like,
yeah,
again, everything happens for a reason. And look at you now. It's you were able to help yourself. And just with this interview today, you're able now, or both, and with the help of the media and the internet, we are able to share this knowledge, this option. Because again, we're not the best. We are not the miracle place. We just feel a missing link. There are incredible practitioners out there. Everybody does amazing job. They all do incredible work. And so many people, they never end up seeing us because they don't need us. Like they
yeah,
go, just get a massage or get treated, and then that helps. That's great. What we are for is we are more for those cases that have end up in this place where they've tried everything else, and we are one more option that they can give it a try. And from my personal experience, it's interesting. It's when we do the shockwave, and especially the protocols that we have created, where my approach is treat the dysfunction while we are stimulating the regeneration. So first, we need to figure out why the problem is in the first place, and then correct the cause while we're stimulating the regeneration and the repair. And when we combine now shockwave with manual chiropractic adjustment, it works amazing. When you combine it with proper rehab workout, the muscles start firing. All the exercise that people do, they actually stay. It works. The muscle gets stronger, and they feel the strength. So yeah, it's incredible. And I always say, with one flower, summer doesn't come. So even just with shockwave or just with unpain clinic, somewhere it will not come. Yeah, we will be that regeneration seed for you. We'll get things going, but you need a lot of fertilizer. You need lots of water. You need to see other people. You need to eat properly. You need to sleep. You need to improve so many other things if you truly want to feel better.
For
And
sure.
this, yeah, it's our slogan. It's never stop feeling better, and it is your responsibility. You're the CEO of your own health. If you wait for anybody to find the solution for you, unfortunately it's probably not going to happen. So you push, you do the work, and then it's going to be a journey. So wherever you are in the world listening to this, look if there's an unpaid clinic close to you. If it's not, please get in touch with us, and we know we have a network of people where we can actually send you and say, "Hey, we heard about this great practitioner," and then they're gonna help you. So
For
yeah,
sure. And if you're going to take one thing away from this, it's listen to your body. Just really
listen to your
listen
gut.
to your body. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. For sure.
And
No,
you
this was
have
great.
see Jill, because this is another thing. Sorry, I'm just gonna add one more, and then we'll close off. When there's too much noise, you if you're talking, you don't have the ability to listen. So it's very very important that you actually stop, take a deep breath, the old saying, and then just listen to your body and pay attention and see how things are, and start kind of testing and use the rule of elimination. You eliminate one thing, see how you think, how you feel, because sometimes I've seen people that they constantly do the workout, the exercise, but they're not feeling better. Then I have the other extreme, they do so much yoga and they're actually not feeling better, because human body requires balance. So too much stretching is not good, too much strengthening is not good. The same thing is like, you cannot sleep every day, all day. It's there's a balance. So respect the
Totally.
balance, listen to your body, and then good things will come to you for sure.
Totally. Yep. I like it. This was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill. Thank you for hosting this podcast, and we'll make sure that we're gonna keep doing more and more, because we have uh, it's our moral obligation to spread the knowledge. We cannot. It's sad. It's not human if we actually keep this knowledge and people are suffering in pain. So thank
I
you for
agree.
making this happen.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day wherever you are and whatever time of the day is. Okay. Bye
Yes.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.